Hello everyone, I'm going to do a little explanation here of how to use CSS to change the look of your web pages. Try to make it look a bit prettier, a bit fancier. I'll do it as quick as I can. There's quite a lot to learn. I'll maybe break it up into a couple of videos. Okay, so what is CSS? Well, we've used HTML to create a web page so far, hypertext markup language. That's the page that's used to the language that's used to set up the content of the page and the structure of it. CSS is a whole different language. It looks different. It is different. It stands for cascading style sheets. Not that you need to know that, but it allows us to do things like change colors, change fonts, and so on. So how does it work? Well, I'll demonstrate shortly, but actually I'm going to show you first a couple of different ways that we can add CSS to our web page. There are actually 3 different ways. I'll maybe do a separate video on using all 3 of them. I just want to show you a couple of them for now. First of all, we can use a technique called internal CSS. That is where we have our HTML document, as symbolized by this picture here, and we can add some separate CSS code into the HTML. Okay, so we type our code in a different language in CSS in the middle of our HTML document. It's right in there amongst the HTML. That's fine, it works, and sometimes it's appropriate. The problem comes really when we start to add more pages. So when I add another page, if I want it to be styled in the same way, using the same fonts and so on, then I need to go and add the CSS in there. Now it's not a big deal, I can copy and paste it over, but it means I've got that code that I've typed in here repeated. Okay, it's repeated again over here, and that's a little bit inefficient. We want to do a small amount of code as we can. Okay, and as I add another page, if I want that styled in the same sort of way with the same colors and so on, then I need to put it in there again. And in fact, it gets even worse if I have to change the style. So let's say I think after a while I've done quite a few pages, more than 3 perhaps, maybe it's a large site. I've done quite a lot of pages and I want to change the colour scheme. I don't like the colour scheme anymore. So on one page I go and change the CSS. There we go. And now that doesn't match up with the rest, so I have to go change it on that page, I have to go change it on that page. Maybe my website's got 50 pages, or 500 pages, or 5,000 pages. Who knows? I have to go and change it on every one. So internal CSS is fine sometimes. And I'll do a separate video that looks at that. But what we're going to use is external CSS. So you might be able to guess from the name what happens here. We've got our HTML file, our HTML document, just like we've made our web page. And then we put the information, style it, the CSS code, in a whole other document. Now here's the problem. How does it know how to style that? Using these styling instructions about the colors and the fonts and so on. Well, it's easy. We actually just put in one little line of code and that links it to it. And then when I add another page to my website, okay, how does that get styled in the same way? Well, I just put in that same line of code and it links it. And how do I do the next one? Link it. And in fact, every page I do, I just put in one line of code and it links it to this. And what happens if I want to change the style of my website? I want to change the color scheme. Well, I change it in one place, and since they're all linking to the same place, all these pages will change. And it doesn't matter if I've got 50 pages or 500 or 5,000 pages, I still just change it in one place and the entire website changes. And you might wonder, why do we have to do everything the same anyway? Well, let's just look at a half-decent website. I do not want to close this at all. I want to minimize it. Let's go look at a website quickly. Anything, Wikipedia will do. I've been looking at the Goonies, so let's just look up Wikipedia on the Goonies, or the Goonies on Wikipedia, and you can see actually you can look at any site you like pretty much. You'll see there's consistency. Whatever Wikipedia page I go to, it's got the same basic layout, the same colours, the same fonts. Okay, it's the same. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what page I go to. It's always the same. What article I look at, it's always the same fonts, the same colours. So if Wikipedia decided they wanted to change the look of their website, they've got one style sheet, one CSS file, an external CSS file that they'd have to change. Right, so that's enough about that. 6 minutes already, and all I've done is explain it a bit. Let's go and actually do it. So, first of all, you'll want to navigate to where your HTML document is saved, and remember you want to edit it with your text editor rather than just double clicking it. That'll open it in the browser. Now, we'll need this to put the link in, but actually before we put the link in, let's go and create our CSS. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a new file. Now, a couple of ways you can do it in Notepad++. Easiest way is just clicking on that icon there, or you can go to File and New, whichever way you like. And as with the HTML, I like to save this as soon as I've started, just so it's easy. Now I can just press Ctrl S and it'll come up, or I can go into File and Save. I'll just do Ctrl S here and it should come up, or not. It's because I haven't typed anything yet. My mistake. Save as. It'll let me save it. Okay. Now, you might remember when we made an HTML document, we had to choose hypertext markup language from down here. Well, it might surprise you to know that we have to choose something else for a CSS document, and it is right here, Cascade Style Sheets file. You can see it's going to save with the extension .css. Okay, so what's important when you're making a CSS file? It's a different language, so we choose a different type here. Okay, I'm actually just going to call it styles. That'll do, because that's what it is. It's styles for the page, how it's going to look. So styles, you can call it whatever you want as long as it's a meaningful, sensible name. And what's important is you save it as the type Cascade Style Sheets. Click Save. And remember, we can check that it's saving properly here, and you can see the path and everything, check it's in the right place. Okay, so CSS looks totally different from HTML. The way it works, I'm just going to work through some examples here, and you'll pick it up quickly. The way it works is, first of all, we put what's called a selector, and all that is a tag that we want to set styles for. So let's say I want to set styles for the whole of the page, the whole of the visible part of the page. Maybe you can remember which tags contain all the stuff that appears on the page. The body. So if I want to do it for the whole page, I can type body, and that means the browser is going to look for the body tags, and wherever it finds them, it's going to style everything according to what I put next. So I always put a selector, so a tag of some description, or the name of a tag rather. Then I put these curly brackets. Now they're next to P on the keyboard, certainly on mine. Do Shift to get them, these two curly brackets, and inside them I'm going to put all my rules for how the body is going to be styled. So again, blank lines and things don't matter. I'm just going to put a few in just to make it a bit more readable. What's important is selector, and then the two curly brackets, opening curly bracket, closing curly bracket. Okay, there are loads and loads and loads and loads of things you can change with CSS to do with the way the page looks. We're going to deal with 5. And what I'll do is I'll try to demonstrate them relatively quickly here, because we're probably about 10 minutes in already. Yeah, nailed it, 10 minutes. And then I'll maybe do slightly more detailed videos on each of them if you want a bit more info. First of all, let's think about colour. People always want to change colour. So there's an easy one. What we do now is we write in these curly brackets, we write CSS attributes that we'd like to change. And you can look them up, you can Google them easily. But the one we're interested in, first of all, is background colour. Now, I can type the whole thing out, or actually you can see Notepad++ predicts it for me. It knows about CSS. Background colour. Now, it has to be written exactly like that. We talked about attention to detail before. Well, we need attention to detail here. This is a hyphen here, a dash, a hyphen. There's a difference between hyphens and dashes. I don't know what it is. Mr. Scott would be able to tell us. And then what's important here is the spelling of colour. It's the American spelling, not the UK spelling. If you spell it with a U, it's not going to work. And look, the text editor picks up on that. It doesn't recognise it now. It has to be exactly like that. Then we put a colon. Okay, so that's the two dots, one above the other. It's next to L on my keyboard. And then we put what we want to set the background colour to. So background colour is a CSS attribute, and now we're going to set a new value for it. So I'm just going to do something really obvious and appalling. I can type the name of a colour. I'll do a separate video to do about colours. And then we put a semicolon. Excuse me, I'm wheezing a bit. That's it. Now, I'm going to save that, Control S. So I've now got a bit of CSS that will change the body element to have a background colour of red. If I go back to my HTML and view this in the browser, do you think it's going to work? I'll give you a clue. I'm asking because the answer is no. Why is it not working? Or why is it about to not work? I haven't changed the background colour to red. Because I haven't done the important part. I haven't linked it. Now, genuinely, I forget this all the time. I think I remember it at the moment, but I just want to make a point here. If you can't remember how to do things, use Google. Be a bit, show a bit of initiative. Be independent. Link to external CSS. Okay? If I can't remember how to do this, you can see I've been on this before. Have a look at the links. Don't expect the answer to appear right here in the search results. Actually click on a link, read it, and you'll be able to find out. I mean, if I click here, I'm sure right on this page, how to add CSS. 3 ways to insert CSS. External CSS, that's what I'm interested in. And it's right there for me, okay? And it explains it all. But I'm explaining it all anyway. Right, how we link is in the head tag. So in the head element, rather. We don't put it anywhere else. We don't want this code to appear on the page, so it has to go in the head section. So what I do is I type link. Now this is an empty tag. That means it doesn't have an opening and a closing. That alone doesn't do much. You might guess we need to tell it where to link to. So there are a couple of attributes we need to put in. The first is, I'm just going to double check, yeah, it is rel equals style sheet. There's 3 in that example, we can get away without one of them. Rel equals, I have no idea what rel might stand for. I should probably think about it. This bit, style sheet, this whole bit, rel equals style sheet, it's always that. You never change that. So it's always this much. Link space rel equals style sheet. Remember, these are speech marks. That's shift and 2. And then a space, and then we put href. Again, I'm going to check that's right. It might be source actually. src. No, href. Now that's something we'll look at later. It actually stands for hyperlink reference. But anyway, don't worry too much about that. It's href, not herf. Href. Hyperlink reference is what it's short for. And in here, we put the name of the file that has our CSS that we're trying to link to. Now I can see it right here. Styles, and we need the file extension as well. Styles.css. That's the file extension, that bit. If you don't put that, it won't work. Now another important point here, it has to be saved in the same folder. There, as you can see, it's appearing now. We can see that is a cascading style sheet document. So it has to be in the same folder, okay? Not elsewhere, otherwise it won't be able to find it. It's going to look in the same folder. However, if you've watched my little video about adding images, I explain a bit about organizing things. You could put it in another folder, but we're not going to. So that will create the link. I'm just going to save that, check that it works. So I'm going to go back to my browser and refresh it. Bang. Incredible. And I'm going to put a little comment in here just to explain that this is linking to the external CSS. There we go. So this bit, that word there is actually the only bit that you should ever change to do this. The rest of it say the exact same. That just depends what you called the file. Now, let's go back to our CSS. So we've created a link. We've done one of the 5 things I want to show you, which is change the background color. Let's now change the font color. So to change the font color, so we add another attribute in. So I've done one, background color. I do a colon before the value I want to set it to, and then I do a semicolon. That basically means that's the end of that. Now I can add another one in. I can do it on the same line. I can do it down on the next line, which I'm going to do just to make it a bit easier to read. The important thing is it's after the semicolon, but still inside the brackets. Okay, so for this we do color, and then it's a colon. Notice still the American spelling of color, and then we change it to whatever we want. So let's just make it white for now, and then a semicolon again. So see, it's got the same structure as the first one, but it's something different. So background color is a background color for the element. Unsurprisingly, color is the color of the text in the element. I'll save that, check it's worked. Excuse me. There we go. Right, next I'm going to show you how we can change the font. So again, I'm going to do this on new line after the semicolon, but before the closing bracket there. Now it doesn't matter what order I do these in. I could have done color first, then background color. It's fine. It's just a load of attributes. It doesn't matter. Next one, to change the font, I do font family. There it is there. Now notice the hyphen again. If you don't do that, it's not going to work. If you put a space in, it's not going to work. It has to be that little dash. And then a colon, and I put the name of the font. Now you can't just go putting any font you like, but I'll do a separate video on fonts. You can't just go putting any font you like. It has to be a font that's on the user's computer. Everyone's got different fonts installed on their computer. I'm going to go with something safe just now. So the default font is called Times New Roman. That's what it goes to automatically. So I'm just going to pick a different one. I'm going to go for Calibri. That's how I pronounce it anyway. Now, if you misspell that, if you write Calibri, it won't know what it is. Calibri. And then a semicolon. So again, same structure. Font family. So that's a recognized name. That's a proper CSS attribute name. And you can look it up. You can Google it. And then a colon and what I want to set it to. And then a semicolon. Okay. Again, I'll save that. Make sure I've saved. And back we go. Let's just check it works. There, it's changed the font. Okay, what about if I want to make the font bigger? Well, so after the semicolon, I do font hyphen, you might be able to guess from this, size. But you'll see how many different CSS attributes there are there. So font hyphen size, colon, and what I want to set it to. Now I have to give it units here. When I set it to a size, I have to give it units. In the same way we use, centimeters, meters, millimeters to set a length of something. There are certain units we can use for font size. We're going to stick to px for pixels. Again, if you've done the images stuff, you might recognize that as the unit we used for setting the width and height of images. So font size, I'll just set it to something really big for now, so it's really obvious. 36 px, I think that's really big. And then a semicolon. Let's save that, see if that's worked. So everything will just be a little bigger. Right, excellent, seemed to work. I'm just going to take that a bit smaller actually, just because otherwise it's going to annoy me. 24 px. Now final one I want to show you, so that's 4 out of the 5 attributes. The 5th one is text alignment. So that means whether things are lined up down the left hand side. As you can see, these 4 lines are lined up down the left hand side, or they can be lined up down the right hand side, or they can be centered. So after the semicolon, text hyphen align. Okay, so again, be careful, attention to detail. If you mess up the spelling of this in any way, I'm sorry if you're a bad typist or a bad speller, sorry, you're maybe just going to find this hard, but it will not work unless you get it correct. So text hyphen align, colon, and now what we want to set it to. So there are 3 possibilities here. We can write left, right, or center. And do center for one reason really, to show you again American spelling. If you don't know how to spell it normally, then you might not recognize that as American spelling. Normally we spell it like that, but American spelling of center, and then a semicolon. Okay, I'm going to save that, and let's check the whole thing should be centered when I refresh. Bang, there you go, and the font size changed because I changed that. Okay, that's nearly it, but just a little bit more. That was one selector I did. Let's set all these things. Now I don't have to set all those every time. I don't have to do them in that order and so on. There are loads of things I can do. I'm going to do a whole separate one on video on choosing colors and a whole separate one on fonts. But what I can do is after those brackets, I can set styles for different selectors. So let's say the H1 element. So I put in the name of the tag, my curly brackets again, and then in between those curly brackets, I like to just separate them out there. I can put whatever styles that I want for H1. And this starts to get a bit tricky to understand, but you can play about with it. But the way it works is the browser will go through this. It comes to the body element and it styles all that. And then it goes through what we call the children of the body element, any elements which are inside it. And if they've got styling information, if they've got CSS rules set for them, it'll then style them. So they would override any body styles. Let me show you what I mean. Let's make the H1s a truly hideous color clashing thing. So color, that's the font color, remember, colon, set a color, and a semicolon, and I'll save that, and let's just see. There we go. So it went through it, it styled everything red and white and centered and Calibri and whatever, and then the children H1 is inside the body, so then the style I set for that overrode, sounds right, the style for the body, the color for the body. And I can put more, I can do, I can put other things in there. Maybe I want the paragraphs to be in a different font. So I put the P selector, and just any information, any extra styling information for paragraphs I would put in here. Maybe I want them to be a whole other font. I'm sort of typing one-handed here. My other hand's cradling the microphone. Let's go for Garamond. There we go. Again, if you misspell that, you forget the dash or anything like that, or you put a semicolon here by accident, or you misspell that, or you put a colon there by accident, things aren't going to work. Attention to detail is important. So now that is saying set the font family of paragraph tags, paragraph elements to Garamond. Let's refresh that. And there we go. You saw the font change there. Now, how long has this been? What a belter, nearly half an hour. One last thing I haven't done. And that's because I can't remember how to do it, so I'm going to look it up. Remember, we added comments to our HTML code to explain what was going on. Oh, well, I want to add comments to my CSS code. Now, it's a whole different language, so we add comments differently. How do we do it? Let's just look it up. CSS comments. And actually, I can look at various places that I can do. I can probably find it right there, but look. So it starts with that and ends with that. /* and ends with */. I can put comments in here if I want. So I could put whatever I like. I don't even know what I'm about to put, but I can put. That's terrible. I should have actually thought what comment I need to put in. Okay, so unbelievably, I actually just had to pause that because my mind went so blank. I couldn't even think of a suitable comment to write in. But it's 11 o'clock at night. It's been a long day. Okay, so an important point to remember here is note American spelling of color. Okay, and we can add comments in wherever we like just to explain things, remind ourselves how to do stuff. American spelling of center, the fact that it's always the name of the thing we want to change. Then now remember, you can't just put anything here. There are recognized CSS attributes, and then what we want to change, then a colon, what we want to change it to, and a semicolon, all within these curly brackets. And before the curly brackets, we put the name of the thing we want to actually change. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to do a couple of separate videos because this one's gone on long enough. See ya.